Hi there, welcome to Bowron Around the Globe. I'll be your instructor, Colin Hart. These lessons will be weekly. They're free and they're intended to augment what you already may know about this wonderful drum, the Bowron. We'll be looking at rhythms from around the globe and seeing how we can apply them to this drum. This is for people who have already mastered the basics of the Bowron and are familiar with basic rhythms that you would find in Irish traditional music, reels, jigs, etc. You can take these ideas that I'm going to offer each week and apply them where you see fit, where aesthetically appropriate, in a variety of musics, whether it's jazz, accompanying singer-songwriters, folk music, Irish traditional music, etc. So they're really just ideas to kind of play with and see what you can make out of it. Myself, I'm an ethnomusicologist, and I teach for CUNY Irish Studies and their music departments, with a particular interest in Irish traditional music research. So I've been doing a good bit of writing about that. You can find some of that work if you're interested in studying. The most recent edition of the Ethnomusicology Forum, there with the Bowron on the cover. This is 2019. You can see 28.2 there, and it's their winter edition. And there's a wonderful article in there about Seamus O'Kane, that I wrote, the Bowron maker and great player. I also have a book coming out in May called Bowron Experimentation and Innovation. That's with the University of Tennessee Press, and you can go onto their website and order that. So if you're interested in finding more about the history, performance practices, Bowron making, it should be a good resource, as well as recordings, video, audio, etc. So if you're interested in that, please check that out. In addition to that, I also teach in the public high school up in the Bronx in New York City. And there I run a piano program, music tech, but I also run a 50-student West African percussion ensemble. Prior to that, we did a lot of Brazilian samba, music from the Caribbean, DR, PR, as well as from Latin America, particularly Peru as well there. So that's kind of the background of where a lot of this information is coming from. So let's dive in, shall we? The rhythm we're going to take a look at today, about a month or two ago, I came back from New Orleans, which is one of my favorite cities, just for the music, the culture, food, etc. It's just a fantastic place, and it's a fascinating place. We're seeing how different cultures cross-pollinate, interact, mix, and become something wonderful. And so the rhythm we're going to be taking a look at is a rhythm camp called Bamboula, which on my most recent trip down there, I was digging into and learning a good bit about. The rhythm itself, there's a dance that's associated with it. There's a rhythm pattern that's associated with it, and there's also a drum, which is typically was an old rum barrel covered with a hide skin. Now these rhythms are thought, obviously, they come originally from West Africa. During the slave trade, we see it move all the way into different areas in the Caribbean, particularly Haiti. With the Haitian independence, we see a lot of Haitians being moved either prior to independence or afterwards to Louisiana. And their presence has had a really profound impact in a variety of ways on the culture there, but particularly music. So you would have, outside of the city walls in Congo Square, you would have different people of African origins coming together and playing music, and this was allowed, which is unusual in a lot of the English colonies. This was not allowed. So this was rather unique to the French colonial period, particularly in Louisiana, and unique in the United States. So these rhythms were being passed around, and this beat, Bamboula, became quite popular. And if you hear it, once you hear this, it's a classic 3-against-2 pattern, but it's ever present in New Orleans music. You can hear that it's West African origins, and as we listen to and go through different patterns, we'll think about that. So while this was originally coming from hand drumming technique and sort of culture there, eventually becomes moved and adopted by marching bands, which are quite well known down there, where you had the bass drum, and sometimes you'd have a cymbal, something that might look like this, and you can attach that to your drum. They would attach that to the bass drum. I may do a lesson with that another time, doing two-hand playing on this drum. But so they would have that with the bass drum, and then of course the snare as well. And so there's different patterns for that. So let's take a listen to how this sounds, and we'll see how it goes. Okay, so the basic pattern is. Now I'm thumping with my thumb back there. You can do it with your foot. Okay? Now, typically we can figure out different ways to orchestrate that and arrange that on the drum head to get different sounds. And as you hear this, you'll recognize different musical patterns and different music genres that incorporate this in different ways. Sometimes it's right in your face, and other times it might be a little bit more subtle. So if you just put it down on the bass, you can have... lower. Now, if you're taking a look, I'm using the heel of my palm there to get a nice... You can go as low as you need to. I'm thinking about a bass drum here. Feel like a heartbeat there. It's just there. And on top of this, you would have your snare drum patterns going. And cymbal. Now notice how harmonics change there as I play higher up or get lower towards the middle. Okay? Now, if we take that and we can think about that as being constant in the music. Even if it's not being played explicitly, it's being felt. And so we can orchestrate that in different ways just on here. Okay? So we have just the bass, we're going... You can fill it in. We're accenting that. Beautiful. Okay, so you can get either you're going low, middle, right? I guess almost like where you might hear a snare sound there, even something higher, like the beginning on the very edge or rim of a snare drum, where you have, which is a wonderful beat. You can hear that as well there. Another approach would be doing 2 of the hits on the bass drum, and then 1 going up to maybe where the snare might be. So you have. And you can hear there when you want to really pop it and accent those beats, you might hear. You hear that something a lot of times in dancehall, that sort of groove. Which is quite popular as well. But if we're thinking about that as well, about thinking about bass drum patterns now as well, there's another one you can also add there, which is classic. You can hear is sometimes this will manifest itself as known as the clave, the 3/2 clave, which you can hear on the bass drum pattern. Sometimes you'll hear it on the snare. It'll be felt. Sometimes there's a bell playing it, because there's a lot of exchanges not only between Haiti but also Cuba as well in New Orleans. So you have a lot of these musical cultures coming into New Orleans, a port city, and making impact there, being felt. So if you have the clave, right, 3/2 clave is... And it helps to tap your foot there. So there's a lot of different ideas there you can hear going on, whether you're doing the 3 and then going up, or right, and filling in some of those spaces. Okay, or if you're doing all of it down here. For that, when you're trying to get those bass hits, if you're just leaving it open, or it just has a so if you want to mute some of that, what I like to do is use the heel, and by pushing a little bit to get that slide up, that little glissando, and you can get that, hear the resonance there. So if you don't mute it too much and you use this portion there, you can see that. Now, I also like to use the flat hand to get a deadened sound. There's the bass sound. You can move the hand drum there, hand right up on the drum, get a different sound. Those are some ideas just coming out of the clave. And you can do a lot more with the clave. Obviously, you can do a 2-3 clave, which is reverse there, right? So it's... with that same idea, you can break that pattern up based on where you want to put it on the drum, which beats fall either in the bass, the mid-range, or the high, and how you want to do it. You can even move it up to... I mean, if you really want to get out there, and depending on the situation, I mean, you can do. There's a muted one there. So you can play different patterns on the shell, obviously. Cuban music, they call it cascara beating, playing on the shell. So that's an idea. If you don't want to lean it all the way over, you can do, or the reverse one. So you can play with those ideas of where you're placing them, which beats, and work on the muting, where you're going to place your hand, how open it is. This all changes the sound. And also, if you've noticed, where you position this in relation to your body is really important. If you're doing something like this, where it's quite closed, your frame is absorbing a lot of the sounds. It's a lot more muted. You have a lot less overtones. You can hear it's pretty dry. Now moving it away, still normal holding position. You can hear all there. Even more, and if you pull it out even further away from your body, you can even get more, a little bit more difficult to hold it. You're getting a lot more of those overtones. Okay, great. So that's food for thought as well. I've been delaying getting into some of the bass patterns I was talking about as well. They're getting lost in the different sounds of the drum, which is fine. Another one you can think about incorporating is, another one we have here is... So it's a nice lead-in. I like that. Now, that sort of thing is nice. I don't know if I'd do that the entire piece, but it's nice to kind of weave that in. And as you can see, I'm already filling in the gaps as you feel it. And need be based on the music you're playing, right? So yeah, they have a nice little bass drum pattern there. Now, when we're talking about snare patterns and thinking about different ways to apply that to this drum, you got a couple of different. There's a huge variety of ones, so I'm going to just tap into a couple of them, and you can see what you make out of them. So one of them we can take a look at. Now you may want to do it dry first, meaning it's very muted. Sorry, this way with the hands against it. And again, that or just a little bit off, depends, or if you want to put the whole hand in there to get that. Now, if you're hearing that, it's now, in snare drumming, you can hear some rolls being done. Not rolls where we're going, but where I like to try and approximate more. If you're looking at snare drumming, if the stick is hitting, and that, it's doing that. So if you can try, it's difficult. And it's kind of a pain to do, but it's an interesting sound anyways. That's about, there you go. It's kind of a crazy sound, like you're listening to Transformers or robots or something like that. But anyways, if we get back to that pattern, you can try it. It's not easy. We can do. That's, again, something, are you going to be doing that the entire piece? Make it quite quick at it. It depends on the tipper, too. Sometimes you can do it in and out quickly. It's an effective technique, something you use sparingly, in my personal opinion. I think you're also, you don't want to disrupt the groove as you're playing. That's the most important thing. You could throw a different type of rollover and get that in there, if you like, to fill it in. But it's nice, once again, similar to the pattern where we're going boom, 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 kind of get warmed up going into it. I like that too. Just you have that, we can get that. Just something different, and then obviously as you're moving along, you don't have to. So yeah, so that's a different pattern to throw in there as well. Is, you know, even if you're skipping that little roll, you can do. Now, it depends also if you're playing with other people, or if you're playing by yourself, or if you're playing one or two people, if you're playing with other percussionists. Like in my head, because I'm thinking this when I used to do this with the percussion ensemble, you know, you have someone doing boom, 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 and you have half the other students going. So in my head, I'm thinking this is the snare pattern, this, but you can move it. If you're thinking, okay, I'd like to try that in the bass register, or when you think about this drum, there's always some way you're playing a bass line in some sense. Even if it's a bass hit, quite percussive. Okay, so that's one way to kind of approach this. Take these ideas, move them around the kit, drum kit in your head, or move it around, as I'm saying drum kit, but move it around the bow around as well, to kind of figure out what works nice. Now, another variation on that snare drum pattern you can do as well is right, we've heard this one. The sticking can be changed on that. So you can have, so you got baba boom baba boom baba boom 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 baba boom baba boom baba boom baba boom boom. So instead of going baba da 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 boom boom baba da 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 da, you got. changes the accents, and that's one thing get into in different lessons, but the sticking pattern really is quite important to think about. So if you're doing down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down, right? So you got, all right. So you can do either one of those, whichever feels more comfortable, wherever you want to put the accents, where you're at strength-wise with this. If you're thinking about this as well, you can do this with other sticks. And get some of that stuff that is actually easy with a thinner tipper, just to get it in and out. It just takes a little longer. You can get used to it, but it's worth a shot. The other thing to think about, as well as I like to do this with these pieces as well, is and a great proponent of this was some of James Brown's drummers, arrangers, where they take a different rhythm and they'll orchestrate it differently, or they'll set it at a different tempo. So it's the same groove, but it sounds different, has a different feel because of the way they manipulate it and change it. So if you take something like a brush, some of you may just have other brush tippers you like. I particularly like the sound of the wire drums against the drum head here. Right, you got a nice, I just like the sound of it. You get that going. You can accent that if you like, or does this Okay, well, that's it for today. I'll be doing different lessons on, say, drumming with brushes, the whole approach to that, two-hand drumming, different sticking stuff as we go. But if you like this, please share it. It's always appreciated. I'll leave my email address if you need access to certain publications, recording questions, research, playing opportunities, just different stuff. And as we go through, hopefully this will be beneficial to you, and you'll keep checking in. I'm Colin Hart. Thank you very much.